You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Hey.
Yeah. Pretty good. All right. So we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. And there's no one else I enjoy chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. So just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on pretty much all the socials by searching Bring Me the Axe Horror Podcast. We've also got a sweet website now at bringmetheaxe.com. You can listen to all our past shows there and read the transcripts. And you can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. And lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show. How am I sounding, by the way? Am I okay? Like, I mean, this is my voice sound.
Your dulcet tones?
Because
like your volume.
No, just the way my voice sounds, because I don't usually sound like this. We went to see Ghost.
It's silky and smooth.
Do I get the radio voice going? Yeah, because we went to see Ghost last night, and them being my favorite band in the world, and I know every word to every song. I basically screamed along the entire way, and basically forgot what happens the next day when you do that all night long. So now I kind of sound like, stick around after the pod for my one-man show of whatever happened to Baby Jane. I'll be doing both Joan Crawford and Betty Davis. I kind of sound like
Yeah, to quote Henry Rollins, the voice doesn't come snapping back the way that it used to.
Yeah. Hey. So, what's going on over here? Who's this? Do we have a guest?
We have a guest. We have
our very first guest. This is awesome. I'm very excited about this. She is one of the busiest people I've ever seen. She's a writer, one half of the Horror Movie Survival Guide podcast, and a filmmaker with the documentary Out of Print under her belt and the recent Stephen King adaptation, I Know What You Need. It's Julia Marchese. Julia, how are you?
Hi. I cannot express to you how excited I am to be your first guest. That makes me feel so honored. I can check it off the bucket list. I've never been like a podcast first guest.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's probably like it's the middle spot on the bingo card, the one they just give you for free. But yeah. So like when we first started kind of tossing these ideas around about like playing around with having some guests on and sort of adding a third party to this, like it came like right around the time we started talking about doing these Stephen King movies, and you were kind of like the first name that came to mind because I followed you for a while on the socials, and I know for a fact that you've been to Bangor and you've actually been to the house. And you're kind of you're in my mind, you're kind of like the first person that comes to mind, like in terms of like Stephen King fandom, who's also, got experience with this, doing podcasts and stuff. So it was a natural thing.
Thank you. Well, it's very nice to be encouraged for things that I am naturally enthusiastic about. So,
it makes it easy.
Sure. Right. And like, my enthusiasm is my kind of, great thing, because that's the thing I think is very infectious, right? It's something like when somebody really likes something, you're excited for them. Yeah. But also my friends are kind of sick of hearing me talk about Stephen King. So it's nice to have people who are like, oh, let's talk to you about it. And I go, yes, please. Okay.
And you've been knee deep in it too with I Know What You Need. Like you're promoting it very heavily. It's been in production for a little while as well. Like I'm sure like it's been firmly center of mind.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. How I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to ask you, like, how far does this go back with like the Stephen King thing? I feel like for certain people, it's something that you kind of discover really early on in your teenage years, and it kind of anchors itself there.
That would be me. I read, I was the kid on the back of the bus reading Stephen King at 11 years old. So I read It and Pet Sematary and Carrie kind of concurrently. Yeah. And Pet Sematary in particular really was the first one that got me into both horror, which I hadn't liked before, and Stephen King, which I hadn't really read before. So it was this like kind of double whammy, and I was obsessed with Pet Sematary. I watched it over and over and over. Yeah. And so I read, heavily read throughout my life. And then I realized 6 years ago now, that I hadn't read the Dark Tower series, which is his master work. So it's like, okay, this is an 8-book series. Let's get into it. Very, very excited. But I didn't realize how interconnected his universe is and how many of his books tie into the Dark Tower. So I stopped in the middle and I read everything related to it, which I didn't realize is kind of everything. So I've recently read everything. I've
So
finished everything.
You're a scholar, basically.
One could ask me many Stephen King questions and I would be able to answer most of them. So when I was doing that, I came across I Know What You Need, which was written in 1976, and it's in Night Shift, and I really loved it. And so I was like, how do you get a Stephen King adaptation rights? How do you do that? So I emailed them, and they have a program called Dollar Baby, where you can buy the rights to certain short stories for $1 for a year, and you get to go out there and make that story. And it's so cool because Stephen King doesn't need to do that. And part of the contract is you have to send a copy of it for him to watch.
Oh, no kidding.
You
so he's
know,
seen it.
yeah, he's going to see it. So like,
That's
I
awesome.
haven't heard anything about it, but hypothetically he's watched it. And so I was very excited to set the movie in the 70s, and because that's my aesthetic, and also the story wouldn't work if it was modern. And I got to shoot on location at the University of Maine where the story takes place. So in his actual dorm, we shot.
I'd heard about that.
And in the library and this beautiful campus. So it was really, Stephen King nerd dream come true. And the fact that you think Stephen King and think of me is really nice. Like, that makes me very happy in my heart because, the people who have watched the film have said it feels like you, but it also feels like Stephen King. And I feel that's kind of the ultimate of what you want.
So, all right. So here's one to put you on the spot. What's your favorite novel?
It.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of my very first ones. And honestly, like when I was a kid reading on the bus, I really wanted to be in the Losers Club so bad. Like that was I was like, how can I be a loser? They're so amazing. And obviously they're fictional, so that couldn't happen. But then I just was asked to actually officially join the Losers Club podcast. So I'm now actually a loser in the Losers Club. So I have actually achieved the dream.
You're just making dreams come true over there, like left and right. That's crazy.
As long as they're Stephen King related, they seem to come true okay.
Dave, have I asked you that before? Like, what was your favorite novel?
I want to hear yours too, Ryan.
Oh, I'll tell you.
I don't know. I mean, of his, I think the first 3 are really solid. I think The Shining is really good. I just read Burnt Offerings, and having finished it, I was just like, wow, that's basically The Shining.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
But Burnt Offerings was published, I think, quite a few years earlier.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I think I think Salem's Lot is really good. I like that it's kind of like a bourgeois novel. It's like Peyton Place, but with vampires.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer to mine. Salem's Lot is my favorite one.
Okay,
by a long shot.
Have you read the Dark Tower series?
I have read the first one, and I read most of the second one, and I got to a spot where I was like, it's not hooking me like I thought it would.
Okay, here's the thing though. If Salem's Lot is your favorite Stephen King novel, then you need to read the Dark Tower series. I'm not gonna. No, I'm telling you, man. I'm not gonna elaborate, but I will say it'll make sense later.
Okay.
This is what I do. I shove Stephen King onto people. This is my job.
All right, for you, I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
All right. So right before we get into it, let's run the trailer. Let's give you a little taste of what's coming here.
It began in May, and every month after that, whenever the moon was full, it happened again. And again.
What was that? It's over there. Point that at me.
Nobody knew who or what was responsible.
Come on.
They only knew it had to be stopped. Now, from the master of mystery and suspense, Stephen King's Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet, the last glimmering hope.
So you guys know that it's if it says Stephen King's and then the title, wrote the screenplay. But if
Yeah.
it does, so that's the specific Stephen King's this thing.
Oh, okay. Actually, I did not know that because I actually have a note that's just to show you what kind of a quantity he was in the 1980s. Like they had to attach it to this one because it wasn't quite as well known as his other novels, but he was such a humongous commodity at the time. You could slap his name on anything and people would go see it.
But it's also changing the name from the novelette, which is Cycle of the Werewolf.
Right,
So they didn't
right.
keep that. So maybe they want to be like, hey, it's the same story, just so you know. Have you
Yeah.
read that one?
That is one that I have not. I don't think I've ever even seen it.
It's super cool because it's just snippet. It's just 1 month for the entire year, and so
Right.
just like
Yeah, it started as a calendar.
yeah, it's like it's a cool idea. It's like every month has a little vignette, and then there's art that goes along with it. That's really lovely.
Yes, Bernie Wrightson.
Yes, really good stuff. Two things when I just reread it yesterday to freshen up, and this is always weird to me when this happens when in a movie like the book they change because I almost always try to read the book before the movie, and sometimes they change names for no reason, and it always flummoxes me. So in
Uncle Red,
and this is Uncle Al in the novelette
for no particular reason.
And her
at
name
all.
isn't Jane; it's Kate, and I'm like, why?
Yep.
They're
That's
so
so
innocuous
weird.
names.
It's so arbitrary. Yeah.
Why did Stephen King do that?
It's also set. It's set in like 1978 or something, or 1975 for no particular
But the
reason.
movie is not costumed that way. They're not in the 70s in that movie.
No,
right?
no. They give you a little title card at the beginning, just so you know it's 1976 here. But like the rest of the movie is very clearly like, I don't know. It's the date is arbitrary. There's nothing that really kind of plants it in a particular time. The fashion doesn't really reflect it, maybe a little bit, but almost immediately I forget that it's set in 76, and it's such an arbitrary date that it doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Let me tell you something about this movie. I think this is a good movie that could be a great movie, but it cannot get out of its
That's
own way.
a very good observation. So
and I think everybody involved kind of agrees. So if I don't know if either of you have the Blu-ray, but
what do you mean by that?
It's a movie that can't on the Blu-ray the commentary with Martha De Laurentis, who was the producer I think on this one. She was also Dino De Laurentis' wife. Eventually, not at this time she wasn't, but and Dan Attias, the director. Dan Attias and Martha De Laurentis wanted this to be kind of a YA movie, like a young adult thing for kids. And Stephen King and Dino De Laurentis were like, no, we want to go hard R on this. And they never really worked it out. So they're kind of fighting each other throughout this whole movie. So you've got a movie that is essentially a coming of age story that is also gory as fuck. And the tone just bounces back and forth, and you're never quite sure how you're supposed to feel. It's like, is this a sentimental moment? And then there's like a 12-year-old boy being torn apart. And so it's just it's constantly like fighting with itself to be something. And they never really settled on one or the other. And I think because of that, and this is what Martha De Laurentis says, is that because of that, what they had done, it never really finds its audience as a movie. Because it's like, is it for kids? And if it is, they can't get in to see the movie.
I kind of disagree with you, honestly, because I feel like the kind of horror movies that intrigue me most are character driven. So the fact that this is more about Marty and Jane than it is about the werewolf, I enjoy because I really like getting into their character. And then you do care if something happens to them. Because I think about it. You have like the 2017 version of it. It's basically Stand By Me, but with like Pennywise inserted, right? You're getting the heart of it is the losers, these characters, and then the horror is kind of secondary to that. So I think there's just enough gore in this for me. I mean, I'll always take more gore, but
oh yeah. I'm kind of a mind with Dave on this one, and it's mostly just it seems to lack a singular vision. And I think basically of all of the research that I did on it, it does seem to be a movie where everybody was butting heads with one another, and that quality of it kind of shows. But we'll get there.
I mean, it starts at the beginning with Don Coscarelli, he makes it like 2 weeks on this movie, and they fought so much. I think over the design of the werewolf was the big sticking point. That eventually I think he says he walked away. I think they say he was fired, and I think Dan Attias is like, never heard of him. Which is like, okay, dude, come on. We've all heard of him.
So as usual, we're going to talk about this from start to finish, so be warned, spoilers to follow. So let's run down the facts here. This was released in 1985, and some other movies that were released that year. But House and Life Force, Toby Hooper's notorious naked vampire movie. We also got Return of the Living Dead, Demons, and Ghoulies, which is a really, really stupid but very fun movie.
That's a solid list, honestly.
Wait, was the last one Ghoulies?
You know Ghoulies?
That was the first big is it Empire?
Yeah.
Put that one out? It was like the first big Empire movie. Like that was the one that made them a shitload of money.
It kind of makes sense.
All their
with
movies.
the poster art that when the art that was on the box,
It's
it
the
just
VHS,
sells itself.
It's the VHS cover that everybody remembers. You're like, oh yeah, the Ghoulies got that in my brain forever.
Yep. See, here's the thing: we don't even have to describe it. You're seeing it right now as you listen to this. Yeah. So, cast and crew. The director is Dan Attias. And this was his first director's gig after nearly a decade of gigs as a second assistant director. Nowadays, like most of the people who were hired guns rather than on tours, he does a lot of television. And he still does a good deal of work today. He wasn't De Laurentis' first choice. As we said, the job originally was Don Coscarelli's. Don Coscarelli, of course, of Phantasm fame. And it sounds like it was a bit of a shit show to start off. And we hit a few points there where like everybody seemed to have conflicting visions for this movie. So Coscarelli bows out, or it depends on who's telling the story. But it prompted De Laurentis to bring in Attias, and I'm not really sure what the vector was for that. I don't really know how that happened.
He was like a second AD on a bunch of shit. So he came out of, there was a program I think at USC that he had gone into the film program and then like dropped out after a year and joined. It was like this second AD program, like a training program, vocational thing. So essentially it's like a pipeline right into movies. So he does that and gets dumped into the industry essentially and starts working on shit like Airplane and E.T. And I think that's kind of how he gets in with, there is a direct connection. I can't remember which movie it is, but that's how he gets involved with them.
All right. And the writer, as Julia mentioned, Stephen King himself. He wrote this one. And like we said, he wielded a tremendous amount of power over the production in this. And that's also kind of unique for a writer.
Well, he was also like, this is height of addiction levels,
yes,
right? So,
this
is like near maximum overdrive, right? Where you're like on.
This is right.
Yeah, this is a Coke party, a go-go, right? And I don't.
So, but he's doing at this time. He's writing this. He's I think starting to work on Maximum Overdrive. He's editing the last half of it, and he's starting to write. I think Tommyknockers. So he's doing like 7. Like, of course he's on. What else he's gonna do?
Yeah, and
something about Creepshow.
Oh yeah, because Creepshow 2 comes along. And not long after this. But yeah, we did Maximum Overdrive in our last episode. And oh boy, that one is completely disconnected from reality in a way that is just so particular to itself. This one I don't get that vibe at all. It's not as out of control. It doesn't have like Stephen King at the helm and just kind of like doing everything he can. This one feels very much rooted in like a real place. Like it's
also the last of the De Laurentis movies because they had like a weird falling out at the end of
because Cat's Eye came out the same year,
which is great.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It has one of my favorite sequences in all of horror cinema, the troll battle at the
god, yeah.
end.
Oh, it's like
when it gets sucked into
like
the fan.
Like the record and the cat's playing with it. It's genius.
It's the only part of the movie. I haven't seen Cat's Eye in forever. I'm gonna have to do something about that, but that's the only part that I remember.
Because it should be burned in your brain. Well,
it's so good, and the goblin is so cool.
Yeah, it really is. I wish it got more screen time. I think it's possible that maybe I connected more with this movie because it has a teenage girl protagonist, which is something like, and not in a Carrie kind of way, right? Like, I think it's unusual to have one who's so mild. Usually his characters are bigger when they're, we get a lot of women with powers and whatnot. But I think their relationship's really cute. And
like there's little
the two leads in this movie do great. Like Corey Haim is he's adorable. He's a great actor at this point. Like we don't have all the baggage. She's also great.
Yeah. Well, she was Anne of Green Gables or something like that. Like
Mhm.
that was her big role, like either before or after this.
And
But
this
yeah,
is early for Corey Haim as well, right? He's only done a
this
couple movies. He's done
I
Firstborn.
think it's his first movie
He does
or second.
This
Firstborn. He
is-
does Lucas. Lucas is right after
Yeah,
this.
Lucas.
yeah. So this is not his first role. It's his first starring role, though.
Right.
So yeah. So Corey Haim, obviously one of the two Coreys of legend, absolute icon of the 1980s, and a real sad story about how Hollywood chews people up and spits them out. Like I said, not his first role, but his first starring role, and
I
so
was
it goes.
I was obsessed with him when I was a kid. Like he was
of
one
the
of
two
my.
Coreys, I think
Oh,
he
yeah.
was my favorite.
He
Yeah.
was one of my number one. Like I wrote him letters. Like we're talking
Oh,
about
no,
like that
really?
kind of fame. Yeah. And I was
Damn.
always kind of bummed about it because he never wrote me back. And I got
Yeah.
a lot of letters back that were just like obviously just robo signed, which is fine. I was like, oh, Corey, but I'm always on his side, and I'm sad that things didn't turn out for him. I was always hoping he did have his like John Travolta comeback. Like you'd have
Oh,
this
right.
role that would just launch him back into the stratosphere about Brendan Fraser.
He popped up in Crank 2, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's Corey Haim!" And then and I think he died the same year, I believe.
Oh, R.I.P.
Yeah.
Corey, we love him.
I know, but yeah, 2 years later, he does The Lost Boys, and the undisputed era of the Coreys begins proper. Corey Haim, of course, is not the only Corey to appear in a Stephen King movie. In '86, Corey Feldman starred in Stand By Me. Following that up is
And he turned out to be a sex predator.
yeah. The Coreys are just a kind of a disaster, man. What a bummer.
Hollywood,
The
it's so
80s.
glamorous.
Oh God. Yeah, but also this stars Everett McGill, who is immediately
Yeah,
Big
Big
Ed.
Ed.
immediately recognizable as Big Ed Hurley from Twin Peaks. This is not his first run in a De Laurentis picture. He was also Stilgar in David Lynch's Dune. Then he went.
That's how he got this movie.
Oh, no kidding. All right, yeah, and he also went on again to work with Lynch in The Straight Story. Which, have you guys seen that?
Yep.
It's great. It's
Mm,
the last. I love it. I think it is adorable. It is the last thing you expect from David Lynch.
okay. I just remember, very long scenes of a man going across the screen on a lawnmower a lot in that movie. That's
Yeah,
what I remember.
here's the thing. A lot of people also talk very positively about Inland Empire, and I am not on that ship
Mhm.
because that's a lot of just still shots of Laura Dern just doing nothing.
Well, Twin Peaks though is my jam. I mean, the original OG season. I am all about it. I was very obsessed when I was in high school, and I'm obsessed still.
Yeah, that's one that really stays with you. I'm also a very big fan. I recently went back to The People Under the Stairs, and for him and Nadine to show up in that as sort of like
That's why they're in it, though. They're in it because
I
of
know,
but
but
as like fucked up versions of themselves
Yeah.
on Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I really never wanted to see them in the S&M gear, and I was like, oh,
Ah.
you're like kind of frying my brain with that. I don't know if I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're gonna give it to you. But also, this is a pre-motorcycle crash role for Gary Busey. So in '88, he was involved in a well publicized motorcycle crash in which he wasn't wearing a helmet. Ironically, he was one of the outspoken no helmet laws guys, and the no helmet thing kind of fucked him up. He suffers a fractured skull, and from that point on, he kind of gradually becomes the Busey that we know today. If you go,
I don't know. I see shades of
Yeah.
that Busey in this character.
he's definitely a little wily, but the guy that they had, remember that show I'm with Busey? That was obviously an exaggeration for reality TV, but he really is kind of just a maniac these days, and a head injury will do that to you, radically changes your behavior. And so if you go and I noticed this today when I was kind of looking him up. If you check him out, the top image search results for him are him just looking like a madman.
Yeah, he's not a great person either.
No, he's
unfortunately.
He's
I'll
always
give him
been
this.
insane.
Yeah, not this insane, but I feel like that was something that was definitely exacerbated by the accident.
I love that they cast him in this though, because I feel like Uncle Red should be this kind of sympathetic guy who you're like, yeah, he'll be on their side, and then I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna do. He seems kind of out of control.
Yeah, well, Dan Attias went real hard for him. He lobbied for him because Martha De Laurentis didn't want him. And so Dan Attias was like, no, we're doing it with him or we're
It's a
not doing
great
it
choice
at all.
too, because he really connects with the character, and I guess he like ad libs most of his
Yeah,
lines.
there's a bunch of ad lib shit
And it's
in this.
great. Like he's very natural. You could feel like he definitely connected with it and kind of brings it out. It's like he's really like the third star, like the third leg that holds the thing up. He's a really great character in this movie. So let's do some notes. This is
You left out Jay Chataway on this.
Oh no, I got a note about Jay Chataway.
Left out my boy.
Like Maximum Overdrive, this was shot in and around Wilmington, North Carolina. He had a huge like studio property there, and like man, he really got his money's worth out of North Carolina. The only problem is we live near Maine, and so like I know what.
And there's nothing about this movie that looks like
I know
New
what
England.
Maine looks like. It doesn't look like North Carolina. It is set in Tarker's Mills, which is one of the many fictional towns in Maine that King created. He reuses and mentions in other stories. The thing he picked up from H.P. Lovecraft. He's got his own short stories take place around real towns and locations in New England. This sort of persistent in-book universe. For King, his most well-known town is probably Castle Rock or Derry, depending on who you ask. And creature effects were done by Carlo Rambaldi, who up to this point is a goddamn legend, an unsung hero of Hollywood special effects.
He made E.T.
He made E.T., goddamn it. He made the Alien.
And the Xenomorph. Yeah.
Which makes the werewolf suit in this movie so suspicious.
So I got a little information on this werewolf. So originally the reason Coscarelli, so none of them liked it at first. They all said it looked like a bear.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think it still looks like a bear, but apparently that De Laurentis got so frustrated that he went to the UNC zoology program or something and was like, can you help us make this look like a wolf? And it's like, did you get the secretary? Because whoever helped you make this look like a wolf should be fired.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a stuffed animal.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a note in here towards the end, like when we really finally see it, because the wolf is kept. This was a sort of a Stephen King device specifically for the movie where you don't really get a good look at it. Like this isn't The Howling or American Werewolf, like where the point is to come to the movie and see a transformation on screen. Like this was supposed to be a shape in the darkness that you catch glimpses of, and that's.
Well, this also has tons of Jaws influence in it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I actually have a note about that. But moving forward, the soundtrack is by Jay Chataway, who also did Maniac. See our Maniac episode. He spent a lot of time in the 80s moving between productions for Bill Lustig, Canon Films, and De Laurentis.
We just did an episode on Maniac for my podcast as well. I am a giant fan of that movie.
That was a movie that go back and listen to our episode. We spent a lot of time kind of re-examining it. I enjoy it. Not as much as I remembered enjoying it, but it's definitely worth a watch for sure.
And I'll tell you, Chataway's score for that is awesome. His score for this, though,
it's all over the place.
It is really all over the place. It's like there are parts of it that are so sentimental and like just dripping. And it's kind of like, this feels like weird kids TV. Like it feels like the late 80s HBO stuff.
Yeah, but then there's tracks in the middle of it that are that like buzzy keyboard stuff that he does.
Great.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Well, I think you have to also remember too, there's a lot of things going around this time that are kind of a mashup of this. Like you think of the Monster Squad, right? Which is a movie mainly about the kids that happens to be monsters as well. So I think there's this time right now, which is good for kid-ish horror, which I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I don't feel like as an adult, I watch it and think that. I feel like.
I think that's what Dan Attias had in mind, is he wanted it to be that kind of Monster Squad, kid-friendly or kid-friendly-ish.
Yeah.
And that's why they're constantly like, okay, great, but then they're pushing for this hard R thing, and it's like, okay, you can't have it both ways.
This was the same year as The Goonies, which maybe they were aware of the production, but like that movie sort of set the pace for like the kind of kids in peril like adventure movies, because I always felt like Monster Squad is the Goonies for kids who like horror.
Right.
Explorers is the Goonies for kids who like sci-fi. Like there was a bunch of those movies that all kind of came out at the same time, and this definitely kind of feels like it's definitely cracking that seal. Like you can see that a part of it, like the director's vision was like we want to serve this up to kids, while like there the content makes that kind of impossible because you can't really get around the R rating.
And I guess that was what I was getting at. Like, that was the point, was that they wanted this to be, and it feels like a kid's movie. Like, it has that vibe to it, but kids couldn't get in to see it.
I think it would have been messed up if it would have been way off brand for a Stephen King movie to be sort of sold to children in that way. I don't know. That's just the impression.
Well, you have to remember
that wasn't really his thing.
They couldn't get into the movies to see it, but this is when the VHS is like having its heyday, and you may not be able to get in the movies, but you could rent that VHS.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The movie ended up tanking in the theater because the box office receipts were so bad because nobody wanted to see.
Well, also the marketing on this movie was particularly poor. Like the posters didn't really sell it well. I thought that trailer was pretty good, but like I don't know if I ever actually saw
but I think Scream Factory cut that trailer.
No, that's the original theatrical trailer.
Couldn't
because I was trying to remember the cover to this VHS and I could not remember.
It's like both of them the kids looking in it's like animated, and there's a bat in the foreground with the wolf paw.
I still got nothing.
Okay. Yeah, but just get
nothing comes to mind.
I mean, it should the title alone should like imply werewolf. I mean, it's kind of like it's the common element of all werewolf stories. I don't know. Basically the marketing did nothing for the movie. But again, that videotape was one, like, go to the video store. I would always go to the horror section, flip that one over, because you saw Everett McGill with the eye patch juxtaposed with Corey Haim with the fireworks, and I was like, oh, that looks awesome.
They put him with the eye patch on the back of the VHS. That's a spoiler.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving it all away.
Oh yeah.
I would have been furious if I had rented that and been like, what? You ruined it for me on the box?
I did not have the presence of mind to even consider that, because I'm just like reading the text and I'm like, this looks great, man. Like this kid shooting fireworks into people's eyes. There's a werewolf apparently. Yeah. Now, have you ever seen the that Night of the Living Dead box that kind of makes the rounds every now and then, that actually has the end of Dwayne Jones being thrown on the fire?
Oh, no. Come on.
Yeah.
I know we're doing it's hilarious because like my podcast is all spoiler like this. Like we go through the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
We talk about everything. But in real life, I am so anti-spoiler. It makes me furious. And it's because of Twin Peaks. It's because when I was in junior high, the Who Killed Laura Palmer, the episode came out, and everyone was talking about it at school, and I didn't watch. And I was like, oh, tell me, because I'll never watch the show. And then they did. And then later I became obsessed with the show, and I was like, I know who it is. And I was so mad. So from then I was like, no spoilers, never ever.
I'm kind of the same way. I'm not quite as passionate about staying free. Like if I find out, it's a bummer, but like, whatever. There's more happening in the movie, and I can still kind of get carried away.
Well, trailers right now like give everything away, so that's why I don't really watch trailers unless I'm in a cinema and I can't help it, because I'm like, the less I know, the better.
I think that's really what worked for Barbarian with me. Like everybody kept saying, like, go into that one blind, don't look at nothing.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't tell
I will not tell you nothing about it, because that movie surprised the hell out of me at every turn. But yeah. So let's get into it. The title.
Wait, did you see who the DP is on this? It's Armando Nanuzzi, who was Visconti's cinematographer on everything, his later stuff.
Yeah. Again, like all the De Laurentis movies, like this is an Italian crew.
And this movie looks gorgeous. Like the cinematography on this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially that Blu-ray is mwah. It is a very nice disc, and it really.
But apparently he spoke no English at all.
Yeah.
So that must have been interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about Raw Deal earlier, where like that was like that. If the only thing that does not make that a Poliziottesco is that it's got Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. Like the crew, the writers, everybody. Like I think the writers were some of Morricone's guys, or no, not Morricone, Sergio Leone.
So that would be Dardano Sacchetti.
Not Dardano Sacchetti, but it was one of the others. Dardano Sacchetti. My God. But yeah, the movie opens on a title card, which, like we said, places it in 1976, the same year that Carrie hit theaters. The narration informs us that it's a full moon and that Tarker's Mill's year-long nightmare was just beginning. And we begin on the local drunk as a sort of Stephen King mainstay archetype. He's out on the tracks doing a little work while being stalked.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get the Stephen King stock characters. This movie is rich with Stephen King stock
gallery
characters.
Of them. Yeah.
But also, you mentioned Stand By Me, which is, we get the Richard Dreyfuss narration going back to his childhood self. And this is the same for Jane, right? It's just her adult self
that's a very
talking
good point.
about this incident.
Oh yeah, this is some real boomer nostalgia bullshit. They dip in and out, but the weird thing about the narration is that it starts off with a strong narration, and then it just fucking disappears for like an hour and 20
Yeah, it
minutes.
pops up in weird spots where it almost feels like the story was kind of getting lost a little bit, and she kind of centers it again. Because it does sort of, you get it at the beginning, you get quite a bit at the end, and then there's like little bits and pieces throughout of her just kind of like contextualizing everything. Because also the flow of time in this movie is very strange. Because where the book was set across an entire year, this is like a few months from like summer to I think the end of spring as this we're kind of going into summer, and it ends on Halloween, but it doesn't. It all seems to happen night after night after night. So it's really kind of weird how things kind of feel a little fluid.
Well, and that's the thing I like about werewolf movies and vampire movies is that every movie has a different rules for each character, each monster. So you never know, especially with werewolves, like can they change at will or is it by the moon, right? And you have
because the whole moon thing with werewolves, basically you either throw that out the window and kind of play by your own rules, or you set your movie on one night, and that's very restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this drunk guy here is getting stalked from something behind the bushes. He catches a glimpse of a large clawed footprint, and then his stalker emerges and literally tears his head off, sending it sailing through the night.
Yay.
I love it. It's
great. It's such a great moment.
Is. It's because it's like slow-mo, and it's like it's casting against the night sky, and it's a good looking head too. But then after that, a howl is heard throughout the town. We get a couple of shots of like people kind of like, eh? as they hear the howl. But then in the daylight, we get a big town event where everybody is bringing some sort of casserole to the table, like literally.
I got to stop you here because I got a question. I watch a lot of 80s movies. Now, Julia, I don't know how old you are or where you grew up, but we grew up in New England in the 80s, and you see this shit in movies all the time where it's like big, like family picnics or like town founder day or whatever. Like we grew up in a really small town. I don't remember shit like this happening.
Okay, I've got a counter to that because you were probably too little to remember it. But when we lived in Marblehead, they used to do this sort of thing. And like this actually kind of brought that memory back where at Halloween, the whole town used to do like a big, like everybody comes downtown, and they had the big costume party, and the YMCA had that had a terrifying haunted house, or at least it was terrifying.
That's so they don't get kidnapped by Satan.
Yeah. But
that's what happens.
But like they did that, and then our neighborhood, in the middle of the summer, had that again, another like costume thing where we'd like put on costumes, like march around the neighborhood, and there was like a big like barbecue in that field that was adjacent to the radio station that was at the bottom of the hill. And you probably don't remember it because you're probably like 4 or 5 at the time. But
well, I grew up in Las Vegas, so there's nothing like this happening in Las Vegas.
My God. Of all the
I feel like I just have mediated memories of all this stuff because you see it in everything, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like real life.
Yeah, when we moved up to New Hampshire, that definitely ceased. Northampton.
It's not a friendly state.
No. Our motto is fucking live free or die.
Our motto is get the fuck away from me. God damn it. Doesn't all fit on the license plate, but you get the point.
Yeah. So so again, everybody, and like literally everybody is bringing a casserole to this thing. Like they show like a sort of like panning shot of the table. It's like covered in like dishes and ambrosia and like all kinds of like 70s food.
Yeah, it's just the worst shit you don't want to eat.
I don't know, man. Ambrosia's pretty tasty. You get those fluffy marshmallows. I mean,
don't sneak anything weird into the Jello though, because I'm not going for that. But Terry O'Quinn. He's plays he's the police chief.
Is he John Locke?
Yes. Yeah. And the stepfather. He introduces Reverend Lester Lowe, played by McGill, to address the crowd. And this is where we meet teenager Jane Coslaw and her brother Marty, who's played.
Man, Jane is a fucking asshole.
Here's the thing. I kind of feel for her because she says like Marty was the cross I had to bear. Her parents foist him on her.
Listen, that is some crazy ableist bullshit. This movie where they're just like, you do everything for him. It's like, he's in a fucking wheelchair.
He's in a sweet wheelchair, though. Jesus, it's got a motor on it.
So I'm going to jump in because Dan Attias makes a very, very early on, I don't know if you listened to the commentary, he makes a point of saying, what was it? It's like, oh yeah. So his whole vision for this movie is that the whole movie is about Marty overcoming his disability. How do you overcome being in a wheelchair?
Maybe it's his mindset. Like he felt like.
But so they go out of their way to try to make it that, or in the commentary. But like very, very rarely in this movie do you feel like he is sort of self-defeating, or that he ever feels.
Oh no,
he's just like some ham-fisted comments
plucky
in there.
As hell in this movie.
Yeah, but there's that shot.
Like he's climbing trees and shit.
But there's the shot of him watching all his friends play baseball, and he can't play.
So I think that feels like that feels like a late insert where they were like, oh yeah, we were supposed to do this with the story. How do we do it? And they just kind of jam that shot in there, because never in this movie do you feel like he feels bad for himself, or that other kids feel like. They're all really welcoming. Even in that shot, they're like, hey, Marty, we're going to go do whatever fucking kids do. Do you want to come with us? And he's like, no, I got to go. It's like, they want us to think that, but they're not really selling it that hard.
Yeah. So this is all like, this is a big setup for the next scene where Marty and his friend Brady are conspiring to scare Jane with a snake. And it's at this time that we find out that Marty is wheelchair bound, but it's a sweet wheelchair. It's got handlebars and a motor. A little sign on the back that says it's called the Silver Bullet. But the prank goes too far. Jane ends up in a puddle, and then she retreats humiliated to the bushes to take her ruined pantyhose off as she witnesses a woman tearfully telling her boyfriend that she's pregnant, while he shakes her off and tells her, hey, remember the good times, babe. Yeah, clearly.
I love this shot. I love this whole scene, because this is that kind of bourgeois novel thing that Stephen King does really well. And he, pretty consistently throughout his entire career, but like, you just get that like small town, people are talking shit. It's not my baby. Like, it feels very Peyton Place. Like the shot is great. The whole scene is, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And they're clearly local talent too, because nobody in Maine talks with a Southern accent.
Yeah. For Maine, these people are oddly Southern.
Yeah. But now we go home, and they really sort of nail down like what a burden Marty is to her. She says it a few seconds earlier, but her parents do kind of stick her with that responsibility, because either one of them could have helped him to his chair and get him into the house, but they had like baskets to carry and shit.
They had groceries.
So this is that weird. This is like a stock Stephen King thing, where it's like the association with disability and sort of purity in some way. It's really kind of it doesn't feel great. But it really, I think the phrase, either one of you tell me if this sounds right. I think the phrase is the tyranny of diminished expectations. Does that sound right?
I've never heard that.
It was like it's like a right wing. I think it was big in the 80s, but I think it's still probably pretty popular. It was a kind of a right wing concept of like, if you sort of make accommodations for people who are marginalized or whatever, then you're kind of doing them a disservice, because they're not going to be able to pull themselves.
Oh, it's the pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing.
Yeah, it's real right wing bullshit. But it's like, there's a lot of that in this, like in either in his parents or in the sister, where it's like, if you don't let him do for himself, it's like, he can't, because he's in a fucking wheelchair. But it's there's a lot of that in this story in particular, but he does it a lot in the 80s in particular, where it feels a little like, I don't know about that.
But that night they make up in a really, really, I think it's a very sweet scene, where Marty kind of rolls into her room and she pretends that she's being asleep. She doesn't want to talk to him. And he like puts a little money on her table there to sort of buy new pantyhose. And,
but she specifies that she can get a pair of legs at the farm. I just love that she's very specific about it. Like, I can get a pair of legs for $149.
Was that product placement, perhaps? Who knows?
I don't know. I hope so. I love how specific.
I would have loved to have actually seen it, because as soon as she said that, I was like, those are the eggs she's talking about. Yep. But so we also find out that Uncle Red is getting divorced again, and that he's a drunk.
Yeah, this is I think I texted you. I was like, this is the most Reagan-y of all Stephen King's movies.
Yeah.
Like, the public, the moralizing and hand-wringing in this movie is just off the charts.
Yeah, but nobody has a secret stash of like illegal weapons, so that's it. It doesn't have that going for it. But elsewhere in town, the pregnant woman from before is in her room, pounding an entire bottle of pills while the Unstein soccer moves up toward the house and then up to her room. But now we see that it has furry hands. And it bursts into her room and attacks her, giving us glimpses of its face and teeth and general vagueness of its shape, which was King's intention for the wolf in this movie. He never intended for us to truly see it. But the thing that really kind of...
Because it looks like a big stuffed bear.
Yeah, the thing that kind of gets me about this scene is she is fully intending to kill herself. And then the thing comes in and she's like, oh God, somebody help me.
Well, you don't want to get...
I think this scene
you wouldn't want to get torn to shreds. I mean, it's a different thing. You take pills so that doesn't happen. So you lay down peacefully and die peacefully.
You just go to sleep rather than, being shredded. But like he's doing her a favor.
Well,
we're going to get a call back to that later at the end of the movie, and it is weird.
Yeah. And the house mother goes up to her room. She finds her, again, shredded.
I love this scene. I think
it really is a good scene. Like there's a lot to
it feels really Italian.
There's a lot to yes. It's very Jell-O in a lot of ways because the hands are very prominent in it.
And it has that you don't really see her get killed, but you see the aftermath of it that feels very like woman laid out on the stairs of some fucking cathedral.
I feel like I've seen that shot in an Argento movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, at the local bar, loudmouth Andy Ferriton is talking shit about the local police chief, Joe Haller.
Is this the dad from Life Goes On?
Yes. Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's a very well-known TV character actor. I believe he was on one of those long-running crime scene shows. But I'm drawing a blank.
He's got.
He was on Life Goes On.
He's got sweet chops in this movie.
Oh, yeah, he's a riot because every time he's in the scene, he's like, Haller couldn't catch a cold. He couldn't, this is
as rabble rousers go. he is rousing all of the rabble, and he is doing a fine job.
Yeah, he gets into a verbal sparring match. I mean, but also with the kind of dopey deputy character that they've got, and then some of the locals, and the heat is turned down by bartender Owen, who is played by Hollywood maniac of legend Lawrence Tierney.
Yeah.
Who I believe was in prison, and that's where he learned how to act. I'm pretty sure he was in prison with who was Machete? What's
Danny Trejo?
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo. Yeah, they were in prison together.
Oh my God!
Wow, I bet if you
pretty
fly
sure.
on the wall for those conversations.
Jesus. Yeah. Listen, you really want to play Hamlet a little bit less hammy, you know? Yeah. Oh God, Lawrence Tierney. If ever a movie needs a bartender with with that voice, he's the go-to guy. He's got the Peacemaker. It's a baseball bat with the Peacemaker carved into it.
Also, nary a woman to be seen in this bar.
Nope. You might call that Chekhov's Peacemaker.
Yeah. Well.
So yeah,
Chekhov's dopey Peacemaker.
Yeah. So we're sort of broadening the scope of characters in this. Like this is a town with people in it, and some of them like the police chief, and apparently Andy Ferriton does not. So as school lets out, Marty and his friend Tammy ride home. They pass the crime scene, but at her house, she points out that she's been hearing noises at night from the shed, that they're scary. And then at the same time, we meet Tammy's father, another regular Stephen King archetype, the creepy, abusive dad.
Oh, wait, I'm going to tell you, this is the moment when I noticed Chataway's score, is when they're riding back and he's in his wheelchair and she's kind of riding around him. And it has this really weird, I don't know if either of you remember, in the late 80s, HBO had shows was that Encyclopedia Brown and shit that, where it was very specifically kid-friendly stuff, and it all had that kind of real syrupy sentimental score.
It's very
it jumps out.
It's very whimsical. It strikes me as he just kind of lifted it from Jerry Goldsmith.
In a weird maybe, but it feels very TV specific, which is probably Jay Chataway went on to basically make a career out of TV.
Can we just point out that Marty and Tammy kiss right here? Because I think that's very significant.
Yeah. Yep.
It is, and it's a cute moment.
Yep. But
in comes her dad.
Yeah, but if you didn't already know, this guy's a piece of shit. He calls Marty a cripple. and he announces that.
The shit that comes out of this
guy is like Hitler. I'd electrocute them all.
He's another Stephen King stock character though, where it's like you gotta hate him because he's so fucking trashy. But this is that weird Reagan era, like real like liberal kind of construction of conservatives in the 80s. So what he says is, damn cripples ought to electrocute them all and balance the goddamn budget. Yeah. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ, Stephen King.
It's so on the nose.
For God's sake.
It's just the bluntest shit in the world.
But it's like, he's a character that's like a backstop for like liberal outrage and mockery. Like he's conservative, so he's trashy, so he's drinking in the daytime. So he watches wrestling. It's like on and on. It's like, we get it.
Definitely had product placement in this movie. Rheingold.
Is it Rheingold?
Because at the beginning, the railroad worker is singing the Rheingold song. And then now you see the dad drinking a bunch of Rheingold here.
See, I saw the beer bottle and immediately Red Stripe jumped to mind.
Yeah, it's the same bottle.
Funny thing about that scene in the beginning with the Rheingold where he's singing the song is in the original script. And you can find the original script online somewhere. I can't remember where, but it's out there. The original script, the werewolf also starts singing.
Werewolf musical. Have we had that yet? Because that needs to exist.
No, there's got to be one.
There's a bunch of goofy shit in this, and I think thank God somebody was like, okay, man, look, we cannot put all this in here.
Right, because
we got to cut the werewolf.
Apparently,
song.
the wolf in the story talks. Sort of, right? Like he can vocalize, but it's like grunts and growls that sort of make an approximation of speech, which is a thing.
Well, in this script, he is a real ham.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's a quality of writing that I really like. Like H.P. Lovecraft did that a bit. Like King.
Oh, I hate that shit about Stephen King. He cannot help himself when it comes to like the goofy fucking dad joke. Every time he'll go for it. But I'm glad someone called him off on this one. Like, look, we got to cut the werewolf.
I am pro werewolf musical. I will say that movies are always better with music. My motto is movies are always better with a dance number. Whenever one comes up, I'm happy. So if there was like a big werewolf dance number, I'd be very happy in this movie.
I'm gonna pitch.
I want a deleted scene. There is sure. I just don't want it in the movie.
Let's pitch that movie. It's a werewolf musical. Yep. So,
but also with tap.
Well, I mean, there is a werewolf vampire musical number in Fright Night 2 in a bowling alley.
Yes, there is.
So we do see some of the dancing werewolves there.
Yep. But I mean,
and
like,
Teen
let's
Wolf,
really
Teen Wolf.
Original.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, so they already beat us to it.
But Teen Wolf's not a musical.
No.
But
I would like that.
We'll take it to Broadway.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway, these damn cripples. We ought to electrocute all.
Guess who's gonna die next?
Well,
so we enter Uncle Red, who is indeed quite drunk.
It's just fucking wild turkey straight out
of an entire bottle of wild turkey while playing cards with Marty. But he's the fun uncle in Marty's life, and he's kind of like.
So here's my question about this: Uncle Red, Uncle Al, if you will, he's supposed to be Marty's father figure, but Marty has a father
who we barely see in this movie at all.
Yeah, he's kind of like Mike's father.
Why don't you just kill off the father?
Well, because I think his parents are serious, right? So like he needs to have somebody who has a sense of humor about him and treats him kind of because his parents treat him like he's handicapped all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, his mom's a real stick in the mud. I'll tell you that.
Uncle Red doesn't at all. He treats him totally normal. So I think that's a good fight.
His dad in this movie is a lot like Mike's dad in Stranger Things, where he's around, but like barely conscious of anything that's happening.
It's kind of like an 80s dad.
Yeah. But but this is another one of those things. This is kind of like Jack Torrance in a little bit. At least the way that I see this character is this is Stephen King kind of working something personal out on the page. Because he's
but maybe unconsciously, because there's not a lot of his novels deal with substance abuse. This one, it's in there. Yeah. This shit is real heavy in there, but it seems like it's not quite so conscious.
Yeah, he's on the outs with family. So, he's getting divorced.
But Adius says in that commentary that Marty and Uncle Red's they're kind of on a parallel track, I guess, in terms of like a narrative arc. And it's like I don't really get what that means. But
Well, this is, I mean,
yes,
his alcoholism is really pushed in the script, so it not really in the novelette at all. So this is something that he made just for the movie, as he wanted this to be part of his character. But the thing is like Gary Busey, and I feel like this is the same with Jack Nicholson. Is like they already seem insane to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. So like they seem always on the edge of being out of control, which is what makes them like Gary Busey's great in this movie and he makes me laugh. He's really hilarious and he's really giving it. But I'm also like, he always freaks me out no matter what. Like you're just this creepy guy.
There's something about his presence that is a little much, right?
Well, and some of those ad-libbed moments really feel like they're about to kind of fly off the rails a little bit. Like there's one scene, I think it's when they're all eating at like a table outside, and you can tell that they're not quite ready for him to be doing sort of improvisation, and everyone's trying to go along with it, but it feels a little haphazard, and you're like, uh-oh. Where's this is going?
As an actor, you have to warn your fellow actors if you're going to do something like that, right? Because if somebody's
and I don't think he did in this case.
Like it's a kind of you have to prep. You're like you feel like you're going to be on the page, and all of a sudden it's like shot off into this different direction. It throws you.
It's gotta be very difficult to work with an actor who's just ad-libbing while you're sticking to the book, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if like Gary Busey just kept showing up drunk and they were like, fine, fuck it. It's part of the character now.
We've already lost too many people. Yeah. But back at Tammy's house.
You ran Coscarelli out 2 weeks in. Can't get rid of Gary Busey.
No, it's Busey, man. He's great in Lethal Weapon, which came out like right after this too. But back at Tammy's house, her dad is getting drunk while watching NWA wrestling, which is sort of the big.
Which again feels like a real kind of like liberal dig.
It is.
Like, look at this fucking guy watching.
It's a little
like,
judgy,
hey,
for sure. Yeah. Again, another little touch of the South because NWA was is a Georgia promotion, but he is a classic shithead drunk in a stained undershirt. Out in the shed, there's all this commotion that Tammy was talking about, and he grabs a shotgun and goes out.
Now, what's the deal with it? Does the werewolf live in their shed?
I was asking, why are they in there? Is he like changing clothes in there? What is his deal?
Or is he just there to like fuck with them? He's like, I'm just gonna go break their pots because this guy's a drunk redneck.
That's a good question. Because at the end, well, actually, it's in the scene where he kind of confronts Marty on the bridge. He seems to have like an agenda, kind of, but there's like he really only specifies one kill that was like I was doing her a favor. Everybody else just kind of was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But in the novel, he's very like apologetic up to a point where in this he's just like, fuck all these people. I'm gonna kill all of you.
Well, I'm not really
starting with this little boy in a wheelchair.
I'm not really clear how much he remembers, right? That's also the thing with werewolves. Like, do you remember everything you've done the night before?
Yeah.
So like, at what point does he realize he is the werewolf, right? Because there's a bit in the novelette where he's like, oh, it's me. But we never get that because we don't get the backstory. And the only backstory they give you in the novelette is that the Reverend was picking flowers in a cemetery and he picked weird ones he'd never seen before. And we got home, they were all black. And then it turned into, so he thinks like it was those flowers?
Like a wolf spade.
But he is sort of sympathetic in the story in that he's very like, he's an angry person in that he's like, why did this happen to me? I'm not bad. And now I'm just going to lean into it. Like, there's an anger and sort of righteousness.
That's another thing about Lowe that kind of matches some of Stephen King's like religious characters. Like he's extremely critical of religion, and there's always
while also being very religious.
I mean, sure. I mean, you can have that kind of conflict within. But like this isn't really quite as on the nose as like in The Mist or anything like that. Like this is a character who's like, I don't know, he's not exactly pious. He's trying to do his best, but there's also this like other side of him. It's not.
Yeah, and then all bets are off. You're a werewolf. You go fucking up people's greenhouses. You're smashing the pots. Ruining NWA.
Yeah. So so he goes out to the shed with a shotgun, talking shit the whole time. He's got rock salt in his shells.
I like that touch.
Yep. Stalks the greenhouse. We see some broken pots, of course, and then we see the wolf's eye. We get a jump scare with the spider, and then the wolf strikes from below, pulling him down. He gets impaled on a board, which is a fucking awesome touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like one of those moments where it's like, okay, and then the werewolf's going to kill him. And then Stephen King's like, no, wait, I got a better idea.
What if he kills him?
He's going to pull him down.
He's going to get ripped up on a board, too, because that's a really awesome, like, that's a really good hit.
Like, and that feels very much like the scene where Quint dies in Jaws, and they're like, I have an idea. What if instead the shark bites him, and then everything explodes out of his mouth?
Yeah. But, so he gets impaled on a board and then dragged under the greenhouse, and nothing of value was lost. But the next day we learn that the town is held in the grips of fear and that Haller has instituted a curfew to get everybody home before dark. And Marty and his friend from before, Brady, are flying kites in the park when Jane comes to get him.
Did anybody catch the kite?
I did.
The smiley face kite?
Yeah, I got 2 references. What do you got?
I'm just going to go Joe Dante.
Joe Dante, right? That's what I was like, oh, it's the howling. Yep. For sure you have the Joe Dante signature of the smiley face, but also Randall Flagg wears the smiley face button.
Okay, yeah.
Shit. Had the stand been written by now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure what the chronology of the books are, but yeah, okay.
Well, I happen to know that all of the the nerd voice.
Maybe I may be of some service.
Yes.
So they're flying kites in the park when Jane comes to get him.
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, the kite is in the tree. So Brady's like, hey, kid in a wheelchair, you mind climbing up that fucking tree?
I know. I got a note about
that.
What
the fuck?
Could Brady not have gotten up there? I mean, it's impressive as hell that Marty climbs up and gets it, but like,
also, Corey Haim does all these stunts himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
even when he climbs out the window.
Yeah, I think they want to. I think they're giving you a forecast of like how strong Marty is. Like, just in case you didn't know, he can do this kind of stuff. So when you see him crawl out later, you're like, okay, he's got the upper body strength. He's on board.
It's legit impressive. Like that part where he lowers himself and out of the bedroom. I'm like, holy shit, he's doing that with his arms.
To be fair, he weighs 80.
Yeah, but it's proportionate strength, man.
And why do they have he has a bedroom on the second floor? Just have his bedroom be on the first floor.
Oh my God, it would have been so much easier.
Also a good question.
Yeah.
What, did Brady plan the layout of the house?
It's all Brady's fault.
Goddamn Brady. But Brady's about to get his comeuppance because as they leave,
Marty
asks Brady if he's coming with, but he rebuffs him and keeps flying his kite. Which flying kites, he's into it. Like he looks like he's
we have another weird moment where Marty looks back and it's this weird, like longing stare. And it's like, Marty, your hands are fine. You can fly a kite. Yep. You don't have to stand up for that.
I think it's more like he feels like that maybe the last time he sees him, I feel like there's like a bit of premonition that he knows.
I think that's the implication here, because by this point, like we've got a few bodies. Everybody's supposed to be home by dark. It would have helped if there was a little less like daylight in the scene to sort of really kind of push the stakes. But like, I mean, just the look back is enough to go, oh, okay.
I'm surprised we don't get some golden hour Stephen King bullshit behind him when he's looking back at him.
Stay gold pony boy.
And that was the last time I ever saw Brady alive. I'm a writer now, and I have 2 kids.
But back at Owen's, Andy loudly talking shit again. And in comes Brady's father, who looks like a young guy trying to play an old guy.
You know who he looks like? He looks like the guy from, Jesus Christ. He was on WKRP in Cincinnati. He was also on the Bob Newhart show. And he pops up in like he's a character actor from the 70s. He's very like kind of nebbish and weird. I can't remember his name.
You know what I will say? I will say that I think this actor who plays Brady's dad is the MVP of this movie.
He is awesome.
He delivers.
Do you know who he is?
He delivers the goods.
He's Mrs. Kittner from Jaws. Yeah. That's what this scene is.
Oh my God.
This is the scene on the dock from Jaws.
Yes.
It's also the Evil Dies Tonight from Halloween.
Yes, okay, so I've got notes about that too, because I mean, basically, like, I just get caught up on how this guy looks. He looks like he's a cosplaying Mr. Burns.
But before we get to him, I will tell you something also from the commentary where Dan Attias says this whole private justice thing when the guy from Life Goes On is kind of giving his speech and rousing the rabble, as it were, and he walks right in front of a black guy, like the one black guy in the scene. When he's giving this speech, and Dan Attias says he wanted to evoke lynching. And I thought, God,
you don't gotta do that.
That's fucking gross.
You don't have to do that.
Come on, man.
But yeah, he's looking for his son. But meanwhile, back at the park, Haller has found the boy torn to pieces. So at the funeral, Uncle Red is discreetly drinking from afar.
That's comeuppance. That's for what he did to Jane at the beginning.
Oversized response for a joke.
Don't ever make a girl rip her pantyhose. Yeah. This is the moral of the story. You'll wind up torn apart by a werewolf.
Yep.
Yeah, that boy's life, his life is worth $1.49.
legs, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, but
comes in a little egg.
So now here we go. So back in the bar, there's a vigilante mob forming. Haller tries to talk them all down, and this is when we hear about private justice. But Brady's father kind of riles them all back up, selling the hell out of his grief in this scene. Weird looking dude. Off. Yeah, but Jesus, like he's very, very intense. Like, I mean, because they do the whole thing with like tight close-ups on him. He's got that black armband on.
Because I feel like they were like, before the movie, they cast him and they were like, you think it'd be possible for you to grow a mustache?
I think he shaved the middle of his head as well.
It looks like it.
There's something.
That's one of those things.
Where it's like, you don't look like this normally.
That's one of those things where it kind of feels like maybe grainy 35 and like VHS just kind of like obscured the fact that he manufactured that look. But like when you get up into these like 1080 presentations, you start to.
It's like the cop at the end of Sleepaway Camp where you're like, wait a minute, that's not a mustache.
Yeah. But yeah, it's such a
except this very much is.
Yeah, he's such a weird.
This is a Ned Flanders.
He's such a weird looking guy.
He's kind of in a different movie. Like he's giving a performance kind of well beyond what other people are doing in this movie. Like they feel like they're in a kind of a B horror movie, which they are, which I love. And then he's just given the fucking like selling it, but in that kind of Peyton Place kind of way, I guess, right?
Yeah, he's giving you Mrs. Kitten. He is all but slapping him in the face.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, we encounter these in these movies every now and then where there's like one person who's just like, okay, I'm gonna fucking bring it, and they just do something else. Like remember the lady at the beginning of Pieces where she's like, his father in the Air Force. And it's like completely out of whack with the rest of the movie. I think there was a bit like this
where they're like, this is my shot. It's now or never.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's
But yeah, like this next scene is when everybody rushes out into the street. And yes, this is that part from Jaws where like all the yokels hit the docks and go running. It's the Halloween Kills, Evil Dies Tonight, like mob justice scene.
Except it's just better in this than it is in that.
Yeah, but it's just mayhem.
Because I hate that movie.
How dare you?
Oh no, we'll get there.
Just it's just mayhem. Only possible outcome is disaster. And
now this scene is bizarre, but also really awesome.
I love it. You know what it is?
Just it's very dreamlike.
And you know what it is? Is it's very clearly. It's like all the rest of the movie is shot on either exteriors around town or very convincing sets. This is on a soundstage, and it looks
very obvious.
Looks like a soundstage. Looks very weird, and the presence of like shitloads of fog makes it really weird.
And look, I love a foggy scene. Yeah. I love a movie that has an oversized dry ice.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen? We just covered for my podcast a movie called Liton. It's from 1982. It's French, and it is a high fog budget on that movie. It's like the majority of that movie's in fog, and it does give it that dreamlike quality. Where I'm like, I don't really know if this is real or not.
Yeah.
And well, especially in this movie because there is a dream sequence in the movie. I think it's actually right after this scene, and it's like it just feels very. I don't know. There's something about it that I really like, even though the bumbling hunters are a little much in this. Like the one who's just like she's like, "You gonna make lemonade in your pants?" And it's like, Jesus Christ, Stephen King, are you a 12-year-old boy?
Yes,
he is.
And in a lot of ways, he is very much. He's either going for dad jokes every chance he gets, or he's just really like fucking lowbrow kids on the playground.
Yep. But
there is no in between.
Yeah. But like, sure enough, like one of the yokels steps in a bear trap, and then he like steps on it again. It's very like Keystone Cops.
There's a lot of zingers.
Yeah. But elsewhere, walking around the swamp, the mob starts to hear the wolf growling as they look for it. But then from below the fog layer, it attacks and kills several hunters, including Owen. Owen, by the way, is named after King's son.
Oh.
Yeah. And
which one is Owen?
Owen is the one who is not Joe.
He did.
Not the kids. Which one in the movie?
Owen is
Lawrence
Tierney.
Okay. He's the one who's not. So he's not the girl either? Like, I could have figured that out on my own.
But yeah, he steals his bat and he beats him to death with it in the process.
And I love that. That is the zinger to end all.
That's a
zingers.
brutal scene.
Beating him to death with his bat. I love that part. I think this part and the scene after it, fucking
this
great.
movie really delivers on the violence. Like, there's the bat becomes kind of a leitmotif. But yeah, so we're at another funeral. Reverend Lowe attempts to console the town, but they grow angrier as the sort of rumble of thunder plays beneath it all. But it turns out to be
okay. But also, why are they all? So they start singing, and then they're swaying in a weird way. And I wonder, like, is this a thing people do in church?
Maybe.
Or is this just to kind of sell that dream? Like, because it's really weird and also a little unnerving.
Yeah.
This is the dream, right?
This is the dream.
Yeah.
So there you are. It does make you go, what are they doing? Why are you doing that?
Look, I don't know. Christians do a lot of weird
couldn't
shit,
tell you.
I don't understand what it is or why it happens. I just know they do it.
Yeah, well, we went to church with Mom for a long time, and like
that's a
that shit. I know. Okay, that's the thing. Yeah, like we're whipping ourselves, and like you get the chalices and stuff.
So then Big Ed is up there, and he's reading from the Bible, and he says, "The Bible tells us not to fear that which creepeth by night." And I thought, where in the Bible does it say that? Not to creepeth by night. Is that in the back somewhere?
What about the face of the beast always becomes known, and the time of the beast
exactly
always passes?
That was the other part.
I got to look that up.
I'm like, you're making this part up. Come on now.
Yeah. But then it turns out that this is a dream, and the entire congregation like transforms into wolves before Lowe in one of the movie's best fucking scenes. Like, I love.
So this is my question: is you can make all these people, this whole transformation, this part, they all look fucking cool.
Yeah, you know what they look like?
I love that the lady is still banging away on the organ.
Oh
and
yeah,
she's turning. You can make all of these people look really cool, turning into werewolves, and yet your Big Ed werewolf looks like a fucking stuffed animal. Like what? Where's the disconnect?
Yeah.
Come on, Carlo. Would you take off after you made the wall?
Yeah, you know what they look like?
Mainly, I could answer your question one word: budget. They ran out of money. That's my guess.
That's got to be it. Like they probably made a bunch of wolf suits, and that's not cheap to do. There's a transformation scene. There's a de-transformation scene. There's this scene. That's got to be a real expensive trick to pull off. At least.
Well, especially in the transformation stuff, it's all hand laid. You can tell.
Yeah.
So that must have cost us.
Yeah, budget for this movie was $7 million.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, the werewolf movies are the pricier bit of monster movies.
Yeah, because usually, I mean, especially now, like you got a couple of real heavy hitters on the books.
Right.
If you're gonna do it, you gotta either do what they do in this one and kind of downplay it or keep it on the down low, or you gotta do another big on-screen transformation that's like really fancy and stuff.
I think I would have been.
You don't swing for that unless you have money.
Yeah, and I really think that if we had never really seen the werewolf, I kind of would have been okay with that.
I would have been okay with it also.
Yeah, because when you do see it, it's kind of like
I feel like the only one, in my opinion, the only movie that's actually done a werewolf transformation that wows me is American Werewolf, right? And Thriller, I guess, but like everything else is like they're okay, but they're not like damn wow.
No.
And even now, when you see those in the 4K transfers, it's kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm still on board.
You do know I'm
a little less on board.
You know I collect VHS, right?
Oh wow.
Are you just watching VHS?
I have a giant collection of color coordinated VHS that I have Thriller on there on VHS.
I don't understand you people.
Well, it was, I mean, I understand if you're talking about film quality wise, obviously it's not ideal, but I love movies. A lot of like the Pet Sematary that I was obsessed with in junior high that I watched all the time. I still have it. It works fine, right? I can still watch that exact same tape. And when video stores were closing, I would go and just buy a bunch of movies because it was like 50 cents, $1, and I know that they're going to a good home.
Yeah.
And you can get bootlegs, you guys. I have my Star Wars Holiday Special bootleg that would pass hand to hand to me.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, you say you don't understand these people. You also used to have a very large VHS collection long after VHS was obsolete.
Yeah, but you know what? They just sat in boxes. Like once I got like an all-region DVD player, like all bets were off. Like I didn't have to like mess around with like PAL to NTSC conversion anymore. Like I had a humongous like collection of like VHS boots.
What happened to it?
When I was moving out of my house, I just didn't want to bring them with me, so I didn't have space mostly, which is the problem. Like, I only recently started buying physical media again because space is kind of a premium where I live.
Yeah, you filled your house with children. I filled my house with children's toys.
And also, I can see behind you that you have a giant vinyl collection. So also,
that's
Oh, yeah.
about 1/3
Yeah,
of it.
Dave's thing is Dave collects a lot of stuff. My kind of fandom, like the way that I express that, tends to be in like I like to like craft props and stuff like that. Like I don't know if you can see this, but like I painted.
Oh,
this
Jason
recently.
hockey mask,
Yeah,
cool.
like I bought a blank and I painted it myself because I used to have one of those Nika ones, and it broke. And then the recent ones that they put out in the same sort of pattern, the Part 3 mask. They're very bad. Like I saw them at Spirit Halloween one year, and I was like, oh Jesus.
Well, if they can't do it right, you do it yourself, right?
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, so like I like to have that sort of tactile experience of like having a prop or something like that. Like I like when I was in Pasadena, I went to South Pasadena, and I went to the Hedge, and I went to the Strode house, and I went to the Myers house. Like
Of course.
that's what I love to do. So
Oh, I totally get keeping shit that you don't need to keep.
Yeah.
My house is full.
But what I did with those tapes was I boxed them all up, and I took them down to where like I lived in a sort of like a condo complex, and I put them next to the dumpster, but I'm not in the dumpster. And later on, when I went to bring some stuff down to actually throw away, the boxes were gone. So somebody was like, holy shit, look at all these movies. But they probably like popped a tape in, and it was like Anthropophagus or something. And we're like, holy shit, a serial killer lives in this neighborhood.
Like, are they killing and eating an actual turtle?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Oh God, where were we?
Church werewolf orgy.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, meanwhile, looks like the town is turning into a ghost town as people flee. But back at home, Uncle Red unveils his gift to Marty, which is a
Jane's about to be a bitch again.
Seriously upgraded
Jesus.
version of the wheelchair. It looks more like a motorcycle than a chair. This thing fucking flies. It looks extremely perilous and simultaneously awesome to drive.
And you can see Corey Haim's face of absolute delight in these scenes with this.
Oh
thing.
my God. If I were the kid who they were like, they're like, okay, Corey, you're going to sit in this chair, you're going to drive this thing, I'd be like, seriously?
Yeah.
Fuck yes. You're paying me to do this? Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that on his face, which I really like. That it's not character delight, it's actor delight.
Yeah. But so like we said, time moves very strangely in this movie. We go from a canceled 4th of July celebration to a party at Marty's house, which I believe is in September. It's something that Red says a little later on.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me because it's like he says something about like you didn't get your 4th of July.
So
but it's like
here's your 4th of July.
He said it as though it's past, but then right before it, the fireworks get canceled. So there's this huge gap.
That's why I say like things are very fluid in this movie. The passage of time is really strange. So like we're moving along sort of throughout the cycle of the werewolf. But they're not really very good at indicating where we are. That's why I said it feels like everything is happening like day after day. Like one person gets killed, and then the next night another person gets killed, and then another kid gets killed, and then somebody else gets killed, and it all happens within the span of a single week. Like it's really not clear how time is passing in this movie.
Very dreamlike, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know what we get right here?
We get Chekhov's fireworks.
We get that sweet Busey improvisation is what we get.
Yeah. Yep. And you could tell, like, in that part, like, when he's kind of going off, like, the rest of the cast are like, what do we do?
Yeah, this is the part where I was like, uh-oh, it feels real precarious right now, everybody. Yeah. Buckle up.
Yeah. But yeah, we get some, he gives Marty Chekhov's fireworks.
Yeah, he does, and he says, and he gives him the rocket. He says, save this one for last. It's a rocket. And then he says, you light it. And I thought, yeah, Uncle Red, you light all of them. That's how they work.
He's ad-libbing, man. It's like
sometimes even Gary Busey.
I know, it's like when I get carried away and I'm just like going on and on and on, and I'll just after a while I'm like, nothing I'm saying makes sense right now. Shut up. But so later that night, Marty sneaks out of his second story window to light the fireworks. Upper body strength on this kid, like we said, absolutely crazy. We've seen him climb twice.
Corey Haim is carrying this movie.
Yeah.
That's how much upper body strength he has. He's carrying this movie.
He's got it right, literally on his shoulders.
I think that his performance is actually really good, though, and I know that he became kind of a joke later. And I think
I think he's fantastic.
That's a great point. I think he's a wonderful actor who became victim to the Coreys, right?
For sure. And I think, you look at him here, you look at him in Lucas, I think he's incredible. And same with Corey Feldman and Stand By Me. So my best friend Marion and I have a thing where we go, okay, you look at someone and it's like they're acting before they know they're hot shit. And then after they find out, after you find out that like all the girls are in love with you and you're going to get everything you want, and then you kind of know. And I feel like you look at Corey Haim in Lost Boys and he knows that he's like heartthrob. But here he did.
There's a smarmy swagger.
Exactly.
After that movie, they started writing movies for them, so they could just do whatever they wanted, and it was gold.
Man, I was there opening day of License to Drive. I was
going to say Dream a Little Dream.
I actually have the License to Drive poster on my fridge right now. It is on the front of it, so there we are. And Dream a Little Dream, what a movie! That movie.
That's a weird movie, right?
No sense.
Body
swap, kind of, but not really.
Maybe
it doesn't. At that point, it doesn't matter. You just put the two in the thing, and the girls will come a running.
But so later that night, he sneaks out the second story window. We see him ride out into the woods, I guess. But he finds a good spot, like on a trail with like a boardwalk bridge on some water, and
in one of the many swamps of Maine.
yeah. But
this is like some straight up Scooby-Doo shit.
Yeah. So this the actual location of Wilmington is like right near the coast. So like there's a lot of wetlands around there. But not even on the coast of Maine is there a lot of wetlands like this. But he catches the attention of the wolf, which approaches him as he lights his fireworks. Marty lights the coup de grace rocket that he was saving for last, and he hits the wolf in the eye. When he gets home, he calls Uncle Red to tell him what he saw, but he is utterly dismissed. Uncle Red really holds out in this one.
Uncle Red has a lady in his bed.
Oh yeah. So
he's like, I can't be bothered right now, man. He's got bigger fish to fry.
He's had a busy night. It looks like
I'm busy, Marty.
Who is sleeping with Uncle Red? These are questions I have.
Yeah.
Well, it's not Sheila. I can tell you that because Sheila divorced him, and that is why he's a dirtbag.
Yeah, he just picks up ladies,
according to the mother.
Yep. But Marty then tells Jane, who believes him, sort of. And she decides to help him out to find out who the wolf is. And so she...
In the weirdest fucking scene in this entire movie. This shit is so strange.
Like the plan is sound. She goes out, she's going to walk around the town collecting cans to get a good look at the people who are still left in town. And everybody checks out, but not before we get like long static shots of people just like flat affect staring down the barrel.
This is like a real rogues gallery of like the weirdest fucking faces Central Casting has.
Yeah. And it's also kind of made doubly creepy that they're sort of like staring down like a 14-year-old girl. It's a little alarming. But
I think what they're trying to give us is like everyone is on edge, everyone is suspicious, but it's like what you're really giving us is everyone's a fucking creep. And possibly a killer.
Yep.
And then she goes and like unwraps the guy's face. Like, you don't do that.
Yeah. But you got to build tension.
Very
but
fun.
Everybody checks out. And she's about to give up until she brings her cans to the church, and we find that Reverend Lowe is missing an eye and is in possession of the Peacemaker bat.
Wait, is she at some point making notes in the movie?
No.
Because I have a note that just says, these notes are amazing, and I don't know if it's my notes are amazing.
You just comment.
Like I'm real self-congratulatory for some reason.
It's the ransom notes where they send the letter.
Okay.
And it
right,
says, I know
that's what happens next.
Yes, I know who you are. I know what you are. Why don't you kill yourself?
Yep.
Thank God, because I was just like, wow, this is just really feeling myself there. And I guess.
Yeah, so Marty tells Jane, who, getting back to this, Jane and Marty rightly come to the conclusion that the adults will laugh at them. And so Marty comes up with a plan, which, as we said, is to paste letters on one of those like ransom style like letters where they're going to give to the Reverend, informing him that they know who he is.
But that's smart, right? Because his handwriting is going to give him away.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's a kid, right?
Right. And even like...
Well, also what they don't say in this, and I think they do say it in the book, is that the point is if he knows where they're coming from and calls the mother, then obviously it's not a big deal. But if he says nothing about it to anybody, then clearly he's suspicious. But they don't really give you that in the movie.
But Big Ed receives it and they continue to send new letters, and then they tell Uncle Red, who again is less than enthusiastic about it. But now Big Ed has Marty's number, and he's stalking him in the daytime. And this is that time that part we talked about, where like he's kind of like looking a little bit forlorn at the kids playing baseball. He decides he's going to drive home, and Big Ed tries to run him off the road with his car. But thankfully, the new Silver Bullet is fast as hell.
This is some real Ben-Hur shit too.
Yeah.
Really
so yeah, he sideswipes him, kind of wipes him out, and he has to turn around real quick. And we get the sort of horror movie car trope where it's like the bike won't start and the car's getting closer. But he does eventually kind of give him the slip, sort of. And Marty gets cornered in a covered bridge when his chair runs out of gas, and Big Ed confesses his crimes to him. But just as he's closing in on Marty flags down a farmer who's driving his tractor. Big Ed uses the opportunity to get away.
But he does in this scene tell us kind of why he's doing what he's doing, right? He says he kills the woman who was going to kill herself because she would go to hell for that. But if she's murdered, she won't. Yeah. So he's actually saving her spiritual life, even though he took her physical life. Yeah. Which, of course, as a werewolf, murdering people makes absolutely no sense. But, it's that that religious logic added again.
Yeah, something.
Well, there is a kind of hypocrisy. Like, you have to wonder, is he doing this because this is like a retroactive thing? Like, he killed her and then came up with an excuse for why.
Yeah, I think he's trying to.
Like, what about Brady? Like, what did he do? I mean, he's kind of a dick, but like...
Hey.
Yeah, Brady's been a shit the entire movie.
Oh, I don't know. He kind of wins my heart because in the very, very opening scene, we see him run over a cockroach and then go, yeah! With his bike. And I was all right, I'm on your side, sir. Kill them all.
Real scamp. He's a real scamp is what he is. Like, he's climbing trees, he's grabbing snakes, he's scaring girls. Yeah. He's a boy.
Yeah. But now with evidence... Uncle Red believes them and takes the story to the police, and Haller goes over by night like a jabroni to check on Big Ed, finds the damage to the car that corroborates Uncle Red's story, because their whole thing is like, this is the paint from his car on the Silver Bullet, and then he goes over and Haller sees the damage to the car, and so he encounters Big Ed out in the garage, who wolfs out and beats him to death with the Peacemaker. In a very brutal...
That's what you get for trusting kids.
Yeah. Brutal scene, too. Like, he gets it over the bean, like, a couple of times and, like, right on camera.
So that's a kind of a weird feature of this movie is that, in werewolf movies, you're a werewolf. You have teeth and claws and all the things. This guy, though, he's just like, no, I'm going to beat you with the thing you brought.
Okay, so they kind of approach this a little bit. When they start to, establish a little bit of the lore, but, like, way too late in the movie for it to really kind of explain anything that came before it. And that is, he can change whenever, but... the degree to which he kind of wolfs out has to do with the phase of the moon. So the closer he is to the moon, the more wolf he is. The further away from the full moon, he's a little bit more himself, but just an animal. So that's probably why he's using the bat instead of just like knocking a dude's head off, right?
It's fun. Why why not? You could use your claws.
Sure.
But let's try a bat. Yeah. It's like humans.
Yeah, we have the.
Yeah, but it's like humans. Like you could kill a human with your hands if you wanted to, but you could use an instrument.
Oh, I want to. Trust me. I don't know when the last time you went to Boston was, but jeez.
Yeah, but it gives you options too, right? Like you don't have to stick to this full moon thing.
No, I love it. You give us the Peacemaker, and you keep giving us the Peacemaker, and I think that through line is fantastic.
It kind of reminds me of Ben Affleck's paddle in Dazed and Confused, where it's just like
the soul pole,
the fuck you, and it's just like that pole. It's just going to be through the whole movie. Like that's going to come around again.
Yep. So the next day, Marty asks Uncle Red to make him a silver bullet, which he does. Now we get a nice montage of the gunsmith.
Now I got a question about this because this feels like the gun guy, this kind of old world craftsman bullshit. Yeah. This feels like. They kind of got to the did they shoot this movie chronologically? Because it kind of feels like
maybe.
I like this.
You get
guy.
to the end and they're like,
I love him.
We need more fantasy. We need like something that sells that hero's journey. Because like so nobody else in this town believes in werewolves except for the fucking gun guy. I mean, I guess if someone's gonna believe you,
right? Because
who better?
Right? Because he casts the bullet and then he hands it over to him. to Red, and he's like, "This is like the finest piece of work I've ever done." It's like, really? Like, you're just making bullets here?
Yeah.
But
it's like, you're gonna kill werewolves, huh?
Maybe he has dreamed his whole life. Maybe he's been a werewolf fan, and he's dreamed his whole life of someone walking into a shop and asking for a silver bullet. And he's like, it happened today.
Like Red's being coy about it, and he's internally like the gunsmith's like, fuck yes, fuck yes, fuck yes.
No, sir. I know why you're here. This one's for you. It's on the house, buddy. Get him for me.
If I was a gunsmith, that would be my joy. I would never be a gunsmith. But
oh my god, like it's
a weird.
It's
choice.
Finally happening. Yeah.
Just be like, and then the fantasy gun guy at the end also.
Yeah. So the next full moon falls on Halloween, and Red conspires to get the parents out of the house so that they can lure the wolf into a confrontation with the bullet.
Yeah, here's another question for you. The mom thinks Uncle Red is a fucking irresponsible, useless drunk throughout this entire movie, so she leaves her kids with him for 2 weeks.
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
I thought it was just for the weekend, but they just said they won a trip for.
Oh, they're going on like a cruise.
Okay. But Red's paying for that cruise, right? Like they don't know that, but he's.
No. They think that he won it in a publisher's clearinghouse thing.
They didn't realize at the time that wasn't really a thing that happened.
No, because they got those things in the mail, and they're like, "Oh man, maybe he is a winner. We'll never know. It might, it says it on the envelope."
Does Publishers Clearinghouse still exist?
Oh, yes. It must in some form.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Really?
And do you still win a big check?
Yep. No, nobody ever wins anything. It's a giant scam, and there are many, many lawsuits.
Okay, I'm not surprised by that. I've often wondered about the kind of like when they on Nickelodeon when they used to like come here and you'll win this prize and you get to go through the whole thing. And then I never knew anybody who won any of those ever. And I'm like, I don't think they actually had winners. I think it was just like how you get people's addresses and phone numbers, and then you like,
yeah, it's a carnival game.
Yeah.
Totally.
But the allure of the novelty oversized check is a real dream.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. He's like, the guy's like, this bullet will, it'll perform. And he's like, dude, what the fuck do you think I'm going to do with this? And he's like, we're like, what would I shoot with this? And the guy goes, how about a werewolf?
Yeah, it's very like Pepperidge Farm. Remember, it's like it's a real like, I know what you're doing.
I would very much get 2 silver bullets if this was me. I would not count on getting
just to be sure.
One.
Why not stop? Why stop there? Get 6. Just fill every cylinder.
That's a good question. Just get.
I mean, Uncle Red, you're an adult. You can get as many as you want. I mean, you're a drunk adult who doesn't seem to have a job, but
he's having to sleep in his sister's, house, so obviously he doesn't have any money.
Well, he paid for this getaway.
That's true.
He could probably buy some
That's
silver.
True. That's right.
Yeah.
Just steal the silver from the parents' house,
Yeah. Yeah, but
they owe him at this point.
Yeah, but
he sent them on a trip and killed a werewolf.
Yep. So sure enough, the wolf comes, and as Red tries to get the kids to bed, like they're staying up late. They do that thing that you see in these movies a lot of the time, where they really kind of that really plants a flag. This is not now. This is in the past, or at least by our thing. They do that when the TVs go off the air thing, they did Poltergeist and all that.
National anthem into static, and that's when it all goes down.
Yep. And so as he's trying to get him to go to bed, Jane sees the wolf outside. Panic ensues. Red is pushing back. Like he's humoring these kids up to this point. He's still not fully sold because he doesn't really have much to go on. He thinks that the killer is still a human, but then in bursts the fucking wolf. And this is now
through the wall, through the side of the house.
Yeah.
Not through the door. Or through
right, because he also pulls the power cable out and the lights go out. And he's still dubious, Like...
Which at that point, it's like, okay, Uncle Red, Uncle Al, you went and got a silver bullet. You believe this on some level.
Get on board already.
Yeah, and you're not just hedging your bets here.
Yeah, and so he breaks in, smashing through the wall. He throws Red, who drops the bullet, and falls down a heating vent. A fight ensues between Red and the wolf. This is when we finally get a good look at it. So, as we said, De Laurentis hated the werewolf suit, and I honestly can't blame him. The 80s...
It looks real
The
bad.
80s is packed with so many good werewolf suits.
And I love a werewolf movie, probably more, maybe only second to a haunted house movie. And there's just like 2 good ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Who counts as your second? The Howling?
The Howling.
Yeah.
So like,
except for the end,
I'm about to.
I gotta qualify.
I'm about to address because, like in we had a couple of really great werewolf suits. We had a couple of real sort of middling ones, and then we had this one, which is probably gets my vote for the crappiest.
This is like an Italian.
This is like, and I'm comparing this to the D. Wallace werewolf at the end of The Howling, where we got a movie packed with like, they aren't great. They're a little silly looking, but I love them so much. And then we get that like puppy at the end.
So you feel sympathetic for her.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I feel like this werewolf suit doesn't throw me out. It doesn't feel like a level where I'm like, oh my God. I just feel like, okay, this is mid-'80s werewolf and I'm okay. Because
that's where I feel. I'm at with it too. I'm just like, this is what I expect.
But also, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that we actually see a full body shot of it.
No.
We get a good look at the upper body, the arms, those parts.
But you do see him, the scene where he shoots him with the rocket, the one you have to light, not the when he shoots him with that, he's walking. They show his feet walking, and he's not walking like. So you supposedly went to a zoologist, and that zoologist told you a wolf would walk on flat feet.
Yeah,
because he's just walking like a. They're not really committed.
There's no pause. But yeah,
I don't.
This is the probably the most kind of contentious part of the movie. This is the thing that De Laurentis was like, get rid of that thing, and King and Rambaldi were like, fuck no, we're going with this, and it resulted like in a standoff, which we mentioned. Coscarelli was
that's because Rambaldi is Italian and Stephen King is on all of them.
Yeah. But like, it made Coscarelli just go like, fuck this, you guys are on your own. But yeah, eventually De Laurentis obviously caves. This appears in the movie. I think that up to this point, the suit is used well. It's just they felt pressure from somebody to go big. Like, you can't just hide it the whole time. You got to show them, and this is the big finale, right? But
now, is this Paramount? Is that the distributor?
I don't know actually.
It's Paramount or MGM or something like that. And I imagine it's probably someone at the one of the distributors who's like, no, you got like, look, we have these other two big werewolf movies. You got to show it. And they were like, oh, fine, here.
Yep. But yeah, so there's a bit of, a lot of back and forth. Marty is like reaching down into the vent to retrieve the bullet, and he gets it, and he puts it in the gun, pulls it back, shoots him in the other eye.
Marty's got aim, man. He
No kidding.
He is like a gunslinger,
Yeah. And Big Ed, slumps back. D Wolf's right before our eyes, and then now these are,
which I think is a scene
these are good. This is a good, like, usually like the big thing is we're gonna see him turn into the wolf, and then they kind of de-emphasize the kind of like unwolfing. We kind of in this part they kind of go the other way, and I think it looks great.
I do too.
Yeah, it's a cool effect.
There are moments where it's a little bit stilted and they linger too long, and his face looks very kind of claymation.
It's the eyes.
But other than that,
yeah, it's the eyes. They're eyeballs. I don't know. They should have the shape of them is very weird. It makes them look a little bit like a doll or a puppet. But yeah, like, this is the big calm down. Big Ed like turns back into himself. We get that like last horror movie scare.
Yeah, Carrie reaches up and grabs Sue Snell, and then we're out.
And then Jane and Marty say that they love each other.
Okay, but here's the question I have. Yes, he says he loves her, and then we get the voiceover of adult Jane, and she says, I love you too, Marty. Good night. So the question is she talking to us, the viewers, good night, or is she talking to Marty, good night? And if so, is he dying? Is he sick? What's wrong with him? Why is she telling this story? Is he
what became of Marty?
Does he have dementia now?
This narration seemed like a good idea at first, and then they just kind of they were like, oh yeah, we got that.
I want to know your opinion. Who is she talking to?
Well, she does say something else. She says something like, I didn't say it enough, or I didn't say it
right.
Something like that. And I think it's more like just one more time in case I didn't say it enough.
Yeah.
But who is she?
It's real sentimental.
She's telling the story to him, right?
Yeah, well, no.
No, she's telling
To
it
us?
to
Oh,
us.
this is a real conundrum.
No, I think in my
Look, no, it's not. It's cocaine. It's cocaine. That's the answer.
in my
Yeah.
head, she's like, Marty's in a hospital bed dying, and she's telling them the story, and then they like, this is how you end it. And you go, I love you, good night.
I'm gonna.
Because he never overcame his disability.
Oh,
It got the better of him.
I'm gonna roll with you on that one because, like,
It was all those climbing trees and climbing out of windows.
it changes the whole movie entirely. If you're like,
Yeah.
oh, is that what that was?
yeah, because this is like they do it like next year when Stand By Me comes out, the narration is way more competently handled, and you eventually you get the context for the whole thing. This
Yeah, because someone else
I
wrote
know,
it.
but like, just roll with me on this. I'm saying that this was an audition for that or something to that effect, because you made a really good point. It's not really clear who she's talking to, and in this framed this way, like, I have no idea who she's talking to. I assumed that it was sort of towards us because all of the narration is sort of like, just so you know, like, this is what's happening, and it's for our benefit. So,
But what if it's like a notebook thing? Like, what if he has the dementia and like he doesn't remember it, and she has to refresh it, and she's like, this is where we grew up, and this is what happened, in case you didn't remember.
I'm going with that because I think it's an awesome idea.
It makes Silver Bullet more than just Silver Bullet. It's on a whole other meta level.
Yeah. So this is the fade to black moment. Overall, I feel like this movie is just fine. This is like the second time I watched it this year, because I went through like a big, like, the whole, like, I think the impetus for this entire series, because we've got this show like scheduled for like until next year.
Yeah.
This like the whole thing, like, we knew we were going to do a Stephen King thing like right from the very beginning, but when we finally put it on paper, it was kind of on the back of, like, I had some time to kill when I was flying to California, and I watched like
Well, I had just watched them, and you said, "What should I watch?" And I said, "Watch
right."
these."
And then
And I chose these movies because I feel like, so there's obviously a shitload of Stephen King movies, and we could have chosen any of them for various reasons. But I feel
this
like
was the 9th in the 80s and the 10th overall. Like, this, it's crazy how many of these adaptations they were making.
And I feel like these two, the Maximum Overdrive and Silver Bullet, these two are the most 80s of all of them. I think of his entire film oeuvre.
I'll give you that.
And I think that was kind of why I chose them. It's like these Dino De Laurentis movies, and these two in particular, feel the most 80s. Watching this shit on cable or on local channels, like, these were the ones that came up the most.
Yeah. Because, like, Maximum Overdrive was one that definitely was, like, in heavy rotation on cable. That's probably where I saw it the first time, because, like, definitely that was released in the time when, like, mom and dad were renting the movies for us, and they were not renting, Stephen King adaptations for us.
Now, Maximum Overdrive was definitely a creature double feature, WLVI. That was where I saw
Did you have
it.
a local horror host?
They
didn't really have a host. They did occasionally.
So yeah, our local show was, he said, Creature Double Feature, which was literally just like a Saturday afternoon double feature movie. I don't think they did Maximum Overdrive. They probably ran it at night during the 8 o'clock movie. Like, we had a kick-ass series of like UHF TV stations that just ran whatever they could afford, and it was almost always garbage. And like, I think I saw the Warriors that way for the first time. I saw like, they eventually
a lot of Toho.
Yeah, but yeah, the Creature Double Feature was almost all like AIP stuff and
Nice.
Toho and a lot of schlock. You can actually find like a complete list of movies. Actually, I have the complete list in my Letterboxd as a list that I kind of like hit every now and then with a random generator just to sort of like pick one. And it was all
cute.
It was all goofy stuff. I love it, all of it to death. Some of it has ended up on Mystery Science Theater, and it deserves to be there. But yeah, like, that was it. We didn't have a host, but
We had in Las Vegas, we had Count Cool Rider. He was like the Elvis vampire host. He was pretty great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, but like, nowadays you can catch like Sven Gulli like everywhere, so like, it's cool that you can actually catch up with that stuff. But yeah. But
Yeah, I chose them because they're super Reagan-y. They're real. These are real 80s.
I feel like I feel like
80s
Firestarter
movies.
falls in that category as well, where it feels
Yeah.
very, very of the time.
Firestarter feels more professional.
Oh, yeah.
That was right on the cusp for sure. Like the Dead Zone definitely has a little bit of that kind of 70s hangover to it.
Mhm.
But yeah, these were like right in the middle there.
And Firestarter, like those are really like everybody who worked on Firestarter is like really
Yeah,
competent.
for sure.
And it's like everybody's sort of firing. Like is it a great movie? Not really, but everybody's really firing like on all cylinders. Whereas like Maximum Overdrive is batshit.
I think
And this one is
Firestarter
just
is
sort of like
great. I think it's
I'd say it's
it's
fine.
like my top 5 adaptations, really. I think like you got the music by Tangerine
I'd give it to
Dream.
you.
You got the like, you know,
Yeah.
everybody. I think it's one of Drew Barrymore's best performances. You got fucking fireballs everywhere you look, and then you got the shot, and it's
Yeah, I
all
think
like,
it's like-
MK Ultra based, right? Which makes me
that
very
one-
happy.
That one hits the sweet spot for like all of my like sci-fi needs, because like that's also a novel that I like a lot. Like, because it's sort of like a look into what it would have been like if King wrote the X-Men.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not great, but it's cool.
It's interesting.
I like this one. This is where they all fall apart. Like I kind of appreciate that, where it's like everyone's just a little bit tired and they're all kind of like sick of dealing with each other.
Yep.
That's this movie.
Yeah. The other one released this year is Cat's Eye, which is one that I feel like I have seen a million times in bits and pieces, but I'm not sure if I've ever actually seen it front to back in one go.
Okay, so your assignments from this podcast are to watch Cat's Eye and also read the entire Dark Tower series. So enjoy.
All right, I'll see you next. I'll see you in like 10 years. Yeah. So Julia, thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful.
I will talk about Stephen King and horror movies anytime you like. This is the joy of my life.
That's great. Where can what do you got going on? Where can everybody find you?
So I have 2 podcasts. I have Horror Movie Survival Guide, and I also have a podcast about the filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky called Jodorowsky.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
So you can hear us dive into his works, not only movies, but comics as well. So we're going hard on him. And you can find me. I'm on Julia C. Marchese on all of the things. And I like to talk to people online. So talk to me about whatever you like.
All right. Now, Dave, what are we doing next?
Well, that's actually a great question. I know what we're doing next. I don't know what we're airing next. What are we doing next? Oh, shit. Yeah. I know what we're doing next.
We're diving into some fucked up territory.
Yay.
Yeah, next month, we decided we were going to each pick a movie that is a real what the fuck movie. And you chose The Baby.
Oh, have fun.
We're going to watch The Baby, which is a deeply strange film.
I cannot wait. I love The Baby so much. I cannot really express it. It's one of the few movies that I wish I could go back and see for the first time again. So join us back.
And if you think The Baby is good, wait till you get to my pick. It's Canadian and it is insane.
All right. So yeah, see us back here in 2 weeks when we do The Baby.